The creatures that are native to Aberration are very strange, and one of the strangest has to be the roll rat. This large, naked rodent can be found strolling around and burrowing into the ground of the green and blue zones. So, is this bizarre mammal based on a real creature, or is it a work of fantasy? Let's find out. The roll rat was first introduced to the ARK universe in October 2017 and was added to the game with the release of the Aberration expansion and ARK Survival Evolved in the December that followed. The roll rat looks quite unlike anything else in the game, with its large, naked, wrinkly body and prominent front teeth, but despite its name, it only rolls when it's tamed. The scientific name of the game version gives us a clue as to what real-world creature inspired its creation. Heterocephalus magnus is the name the creators of ARK chose for the roll rat, and its real-life counterpart is called Heterocephalus glauber, the naked mole rat. I always do a breakdown of name meanings in this videos, and Heterocephalus has to be the strangest meaning I've come across so far. It means a deformed baby born with two heads, and this word was given as the genus name for the naked mole rat due to its unusual head shape. The translation of the roll rat's scientific name would mean something like really big deformed baby with two heads. But, surprisingly, the name is not the strangest thing about the naked mole rat, so let's go deeper down this rabbit or mole rat hole. The naked mole rat was first described in 1842, and for many years their description was refuted as it wasn't believed that they could possibly be a species in their own right. Their peculiar appearance led many to believe that they must be newborn babies of another species, or a different mammal that had lost all of its fur due to disease, and I really don't find that surprising because they do look really weird. Over the next 120 years, the anatomy of the naked mole rat was studied, but it wasn't until the 1960s that a scientist called Jennifer Jarvis brought them into the lab to study them for the first time. What she discovered was that the naked mole rat is a highly social animal, working together to excavate tunnels and find food. One thing she identified as unusual was that she rarely found pregnant females, either in captivity or in the wild. In the 1970s, it was identified that the naked mole rat was a truly unique type of mammal, displaying eusocial behaviours that had previously only been seen in wasps, ants and bees. Eusociality is a colonial lifestyle which has a strict division of labour. Within a naked mole rat colony, you would expect to find a colony of workers with a single breeding female known as the queen, and 1 to 3 males that she breeds with. The workers are sterile, and the smaller ones focus on gathering food, assisting with the care of the pups produced by the reproducing female, and maintaining the nest, while the larger workers are more reactive in case of attack. The naked mole rat is native to the Horn of Africa and parts of Kenya. They have an unusual set of physiological and behavioural traits that allow them to thrive in the dark and dank underground environment of arid and semi-arid regions. Colonies average around 75 to 80 individuals living together in a self-contained system of burrows, but there can be as many as 295 or more animals in a colony. These burrows can stretch up to 3 to 5 kilometres or 2 to 3 miles in cumulative length, which is incredibly impressive considering that the naked mole rat is normally between 8 and 10 centimetres or 3 and 4 inches long and only weighs 30 to 35 grams or 1.1 to 1.2 ounces. The breeding females are normally larger and weigh well over 50 grams or 1.8 ounces. They have very small eyes and poor vision, as well as very little hair and wrinkled pink or yellowish skin. Their legs are thin and short, but they are highly adept at moving underground, and they can move backwards just as fast as they can move forwards. They belong to the Rodentia order, and like the roll rat, they have 2 protruding incisor teeth on the upper and lower jaw. Unusually, their lips are sealed just behind these teeth, and this prevents soil from filling their mouths while they dig out the tunnels. There are some other very unusual things about the naked mole rat. They've evolved to thrive in low oxygen environments, with underdeveloped lungs and hemoglobin that has a high affinity for oxygen, which increases the efficiency of oxygen uptake. Their respiration and metabolic rates are incredibly low for an animal of their size, about 70% less than a mouse. Secondly, the naked mole rat does not regulate its body temperature like other mammals. Instead of being thermoregulators, they are thermoconformers, and their body temperature tracks the ambient temperatures around them. If they are too hot, they will move to the deeper, cooler parts of their burrows, and if they are too cold, they will huddle together or they will seek the shallow parts of the burrows that have been warmed by the sun. Another anomaly of the naked mole rat is its resistance to cancerous tumours. There are a number of very scientific reasons for this that I won't go into detail about here, but if you want to read more about the weird and wonderful biology of the naked mole rats, then I recommend the journal article I've included in the description below. It goes into a huge amount of detail and you'll be able to discover all sorts of fascinating things about these unusual creatures. The naked mole rat feeds on a diet of plant matter, primarily large tubers. They have a method of farming these, which involves removing the poisonous outer skin, gnawing away some of the edible parts, and then backfilling the area with soil to allow the tuber to regenerate. This food is then taken back to the nest where it is shared with the colony. Their main predators are snakes, especially the rufous-beaked snake and the Kenyan sand boa. Although their tunnel systems are mainly self-contained, they do go to the surface to eject soil and construct mounds, and this is when they are most vulnerable. The influence that the naked mole rat has had on the roll rat is evident in its appearance and its ability to burrow, but that's where the similarities end, and this makes a lot of sense because you wouldn't really see the roll rat if it copied the other traits of the creature that inspired it. The creatures that the ARKs create are meant to be evolutionary advanced versions that were well adapted to their environments, and the roll rat is such a perfect demonstration of this system in action. What do you think of the roll rat? Is it on your list of must-tame creatures for surviving Aberration? Let me know in the comments. If the start of your playthrough on Aberration and ARK Survival Ascended has been anything like mine, then you have probably become incredibly familiar with the Ravager. Spawning in packs of 3 to 5, they wreak destruction on everything in their path, especially freshly spawned survivors. But from the comfort of the middle of a herd of stegos, I found myself thinking about the origins and inspiration for the Ravager. They look a lot like a dog, and there are species of hairless dog that exist today, but none of them are wild. So what's the story behind this aberrant predator? Let's find out. The first place that I start my research when I make these videos is the creature dossier, and the Ravager dossier contains some useful clues, so let's bring that back up. Firstly, we have the species name, Canis bargust, and then within the text about the wild Ravager, Helena refers to them as being a lupine predator. Canis is a genus within the Canidae biological family group, and that group contains all of the dog-like carnivorans. There is one other creature in ARK that has the genus name Canis, and that is Canis maxdirus, the direwolf. Now, even though the direbear has an aberrant variant and spawns on the Aberration map, the direwolf does not. The Ravager, however, is very similar to the direwolf in a number of ways. They are almost identical in size, they spawn in packs, and they have some of the same abilities and features. I've seen some theories that the reason direwolves don't spawn on Aberration is because the Ravager is a mutated version of them, better adapted to the darker environments of the caves and caverns. This could be what Helena was referring to when she describes the Ravager as a lupine predator, as lupine comes from the Latin word lupus meaning wolf and means wolf-like. The second part of this creature's name, bargust, means we get to jump down another of my favourite rabbit holes, British folklore. The meaning of bargust varies depending on how you interpret the different parts of the word, but it essentially means something like town ghost. They are often described as hellhounds, large spectral black dogs that wreak a path of destruction and are often seen as omens of death, which is something that I can relate to right now. Their story originates from the north of England, primarily in Yorkshire, and there are numerous tales of ill-fated travellers meeting their demise in the dark streets of York, or barguests joining funeral processions of notable people. You'll also find references to them across popular culture, including in The Witcher, Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, and Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles. Hellhounds are incredibly common in folklore across the world. The Black Shook is a folklore story that originates from where I live in the UK, Cerberus guards the gates of hell, and then we have the Chupacabra from the Americas. The chupacabra is a cryptid, a creature that is said to exist but has not been proven to do so. It is often shown as a reptile-like creature with leathery or scaly skin and sharp spines or quills running down its back that stands and hops around in a similar fashion to a kangaroo. But it is also commonly described as a strange breed of wild dog. In its dog form, the chupacabra is hairless and has a pronounced spinal ridge, unusually pronounced eye sockets, fangs and claws. We see a lot of these features on the in-game Ravager. It has hairless, leathery skin, prominent fangs, sharp spines running down its back, and large claws. Unlike conventional predators, the chupacabra drains all of the blood from the animals it kills, and the wild Ravager has a similar ability in-game, applying the Nash debuff to whatever it attacks. The fantasy creatures of ARK are some of the most fascinating creatures to research for these videos, because they draw on so many elements of history and folklore, and this Aberration native is no different. The wild Ravagers may be hell-bent on sending you to the Shadow Realm, but once tamed they make for trusted companions to explore the wonders of the green and blue zones of the Aberration map, with the added bonus of having weight reduction when carrying all of your crafting essentials. So, what do you think of the Ravager? Let me know in the comments below. The launch of Aberration into ARK Survival Ascended introduced a new creature to the map, the Yi Ling. This highly aggressive creature is absolutely stunning and looks like a cross between a bat and a bird. But is this gliding specialist based on reality, or is it a work of fiction? Let's find out. In July 2023, the Yi was announced as the Community Creature Vote winner, earning its place as the new map creature for the relaunch of Aberration. A week later, the concept art was released and the name was changed to Yi Ling. The Community Crunch describes the creature as having a sharp beak and even sharper feathers. The original name Yi belongs to a very real creature with a fascinating history. Our story begins in 2007 in a quarry near Motudang village in Qinglong County, China. A local farmer discovered a strange fossil, and in what would turn out to be an amazing decision for uncovering the mysteries the fossil held, he sold it to the Shandong Tianyu Museum of Nature. What scientists uncovered was remarkable. The specimen had preserved imprints of soft tissue and feathers, and because the fossil had come directly from the source, they were confident that the specimen was authentic and unaltered. The fossil contained a partial skeleton with a visible skull, lower jaw, neck, and limb bones. Although the fossil lacks most of the backbone, pelvis, and tail, what remains enables us to reimagine what this creature must have looked like in life. The specimen was given the name Yi. Yi means wing in Mandarin and Qi means strange, so combined the name means strange wing. It has the shortest name allowed under the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, a distinction it shares with only one other creature. The Yi lived in China during a period known as the Late Jurassic, between about 164 and 159 million years ago. It belonged to the Scansauropterygidae family, and they are an extinct family of climbing and gliding dinosaurs. And just in case you missed that, Yi was not a pterosaur or a bat, it was a dinosaur. The Yi Ling in game is a fairly sizable beast, large enough for a survivor to comfortably ride, but its real-life inspiration was considerably smaller. This little dinosaur probably weighed about 400 grams, which is about 14 ounces. Its wingspan was about 60 centimeters or 23 inches across, while its skull was just 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches long. Their short heads had a blunt snout and a downturned lower jaw, with a few teeth only present at the tips of the jaw. Like the in-game version, Yi's fingers supported a wing-like membrane, and in addition to this they had a long pointed wrist bone known as a styloform element that extended backwards from the forelimb bones. This styloform is a completely unique feature to Yi and has not been found in any other dinosaurs. The styloform was an adaptation to help support the wing membrane. The specimen is so well preserved that we know that Yi had a heavy covering of feathers. These feathers had a very simple paintbrush-like texture, with a quill-like base topped by a spray of thinner filaments. The feathers covered most of its body, starting near the tip of its snout. Small patches of wrinkled skin between the fingers and the styloform bone were also preserved, and indicate that unlike all other known dinosaurs, the wings of the Yi were formed by a skin membrane rather than flight feathers. The form of their wings and the physical proportions of their body mean that it's unlikely the Yi had a flapping style of flight. It is more likely that Yi was a specialised and exclusive glider, although with only one fossil it's hard to know for sure how that gliding actually worked. So what was the world that this little gliding dinosaur lived in like, and how did they behave within it? During the late Jurassic, China was covered in subtropical to temperate forests, dominated by bennettitales, ginkgo trees, conifers and ferns. These forests surrounded large lakes in the shadow of active volcanoes, and it was the ash from these volcanoes that is responsible for the remarkable preservations of many of the fossils found here. Yi was likely a tree dweller, climbing up the trunks and then gliding between the trees in order to navigate its forested home. Their tiny peg-like teeth indicate that it likely ate insects, seeds, small mammals and lizards. The remarkable preservation of the fossil has enabled scientists to run tests that inspect the microscopic scales called melanosomes. These are the cells that produce pigment, and from this they have been able to deduce that the Yi would have been predominantly black, with reddish or yellowish areas on the wings and head. The in-game Yi Ling is considerably larger than its real-world inspiration, but you can clearly see the influence that the Yi has had on the design. But what do you think of the Yi Ling? Is it a useful addition to the ARK creature roster? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here, and join the Discord if you'd like to chat more about the creatures in ARK. But for now, I will see you in the ARK. Take care.